to another episode of the Topwater Podcast. I am Justin Ellis, and this week I went back out, and it was pretty blown out, I'm going to tell you. I mean, it was nice and muddy water. It was pretty muddy. We've gotten a lot of rain this week. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's consistent. I mean, not like consistent rain, but it's rained almost every day this week. At least close. At least like I think it's only rained like 3 to 4 days. But there was some pretty heavy storm that passed through Friday morning. I mean, it came down pretty hard. So I mean, there was probably a lot of water being dumped into the river system at that point. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, you kind of have to fish the conditions that you're given. You know, I mean, it's either that or not go fishing at all, you know? So you could either just, you know, stay at home and, you know, do whatever, but I'd much rather just go out there and just take my chances and like try to at least find some sort of pattern, because, you know, you're not going to be able to fish the conditions that, you know, you want to fish on a regular basis. You know, I mean, you're talking about perfect days and clear water. It's not going to happen on some of these lakes. So, you know, take what you can get, you know, and if it's a tough condition, you know, that's a good time to really kind of like test yourself and test your skills, whether or not you can actually adapt to the situation and be able to fish something that maybe you're not used to fishing, and maybe like be able to figure out a pattern to get on whenever the bite gets tough, or, you know, whenever conditions do change. You know, when you go from that really clear water, or you go to something that's like fairly clear, to, you know, something that's pretty muddy, where the fish are going to be. And I was kind of betting that they were going to be shallow. You know, that's kind of what I was thinking going into this, is if it was muddy, which it's the areas that I've been fishing have been kind of muddy, you know, fairly muddy. I've really been just trying to find as muddy water as possible. I've just been finding those shallow, muddy areas, because I think, especially at this point in the year, those are going to be the warmest. And I'm pretty sure that's correct. I mean, I don't have a thermometer. I don't have a depth finder on my kayak right now. I took it off. It was just, the thing is like the mount was kind of in the way, and I wasn't using it often enough. So, I mean, I'm probably going to throw it back on there once I go to Fellows. But, you know, I've even been thinking, you know, about actually just mounting it on the inside of the hull and going that direction with it, because it just seems to be a problem with it hanging out off the side of the kayak, and it gets hung up on stuff, like sticks get hung up on it. You constantly have to clear it off. You know, I don't know. It's you also have to be careful with it, because, you know, you may end up just running your transducer into like some rocks or something, trying to like get up onto the shore. You know, if I know that I'm going to have to like get pretty shallow, I'll go ahead and like just take it out of the water, you know, and then you have to put it back in when you're deep enough. And it's just, it was kind of a hassle. So I just kind of feel like, you know, with the kayak, if I'm going to have a depth finder on it, I'm probably going to go with the mount it directly to the hull. Because, I mean, in reality, it's just a 2D sonar. It's not down imaging or anything like that. So, you know, it's nothing fancy. It's more going to, like, read the hull temp or whatever, you know, and the hull temp's probably going to be fairly close to the actual temp. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be spot on. You know, it could be a few degrees off, and that's still going to tell me what I need to know. As long as I know I'm going from a warmer area to a colder area, or a, you know, vice versa, you know, that's what I need to know. I need to know whether or not, you know, what the temperature is. What's the general depth? That's really what it is. I need to know if it went from, 4 foot to 18 foot. That's what I want to know. Maybe I can find some structures and I can find some stuff with it. But, as far as like necessarily finding fish itself, unless you're looking for like schools, and then of course then you might be able to find them then. But, I'll just kind of figure it out. That's one really cool thing about kayak fishing is, you really get to like almost customize your kayak the way you want it, to put certain things on there that you want, and just to kind of really just make it into your own little fishing platform, which is actually really kind of nice. I really wish I would have gotten a kayak a lot sooner than this, but that's just because, I really enjoy fishing, and, actually having a kayak actually puts me out into the water to where I can actually get better positions onto the fish. The only bad thing is like when it comes down to fishing bigger bodies of water, it just tends to, especially like when I go out to Stockton Lake, because it would just be windy, nothing but wind, and it's so hard to just focus on fishing when you're just fighting the wind the entire time. I would have to, this would be one of those times to where it would be nice to have some sort of like winch for an anchor, and that I had just some sort of like mount on the front of the kayak to where I could just like drop the anchor, let it go, and then just reel it back in. That's what I would have needed. That's what you would need at like Stockton Lake. But even then, it's so windy. Paddling against the wind is just, it's just terrible. It's a hard lake to fish if you're in a smaller watercraft. If you have a regular boat, if you have a regular bass boat, you're fine. Even having a john boat, it's not that big of a deal. You're not getting out on the main lake, but you can get back up into those creeks, and you can still get pretty far up into Stockton on a john boat. It's just like once you start hitting that main lake, you start getting like some serious white caps. You get some serious waves going. So it's I was on the calm side with my kayak, and it was one of those things to where I was like, this is a little bit too hard to manage. I should have not come out this way, and that's kind of what I thought. And it's like, I barely got out. Like, I just went right around this like point and right into the cove right next to it where I launched. I didn't go any further than that. I was like, nope, I'm going to tuck back in here, and I'm just going to stay back here this entire time. I'm just going to be back here, And plus, it was such a big cove that it took me that amount of time just to get in there and back. It was a trek just to get back in there, which is crazy. How long it takes you to just cover water in a kayak. It's just, especially on those bigger bodies of water, you really do need something like a pedal drive or some sort of, either like a Minn Kota or some sort of electric outboard. I think Torquedo makes some electric outboards. That would be cool to put on a kayak. I would actually really enjoy having one of those on a kayak. One of those little electric outboards, just where I can just like wheel and just zoom down the lake. Wouldn't that would just be nice. But so I went out, and it was muddy, and so my first thought is that I'm definitely fishing black and blue. Like, black and blue is going to be the number one like lure bait choice. I kind of want to get a little bit away from throwing the underspin for right now, even though it's probably the bait to be throwing. I just want to kind of force myself to use other techniques other than just throwing a swim bait with an underspin on it. And it's an effective technique. It really is. But I feel like since I've used it long enough, I need to try other things out to see if they work as well. So that's the reason why I've been throwing the chatterbait. And I got to say, that jackhammer is probably hands down like my favorite type of chatterbait. I don't know why. I think it's probably just because of like the profile of the bait. The profile is a little bit smaller. The blade is already black, and it starts really quick. It just goes, real quick. I put a what are they? The Yamamoto Z swimmer, or the Zenko. Maybe what I think that I can't remember it. But they're just essentially a little fish, imitation, and I just use it as a trailer, and it seems to work. I mean, I was getting bite when I first got there, because I got there a little bit after 7:00, and after I put in, I just basically went directly across the launch site and started fishing, which was where the river kind of meets this big mud flap. And that big mud flap has a lot of lily pads, grass, all sorts of different stuff, but it's really shallow in there. I think the deepest it gets is maybe like 3 foot, 4 foot, maybe in there. But no, it's pretty flat, and it's real muddy. It's just real mud bottom, soft bottom. But on that little edge, there's lily pads that are starting to spring up. And I was throwing that jackhammer right down the middle of it, and I was just bringing that dude right through. And when I would bring it through, sometimes it would get hung up, and I'd snap it free. And that's when I was catching bass. So I started catching bass pretty early on, and it was pretty quick. It was just, I think I had one that was pretty much almost back-to-back cast. It was like I caught the first one, and then it's like I cast back out, and I was doing something else, and I caught another one. So they were kind of grouped in that little area that I was in. I probably should have just stopped fishing where I was, went up to the where it started, and then just fished my way down. So that made that, because they're probably just kind of stacked in there. I was just kind of, what I was thinking is just I was going to head to the bank and just start fishing up as shallow as possible, because all this flood water, it's all pushing into the bank. So I was like, okay, well, if this is all just pushing up on to the bank and just, covering new stuff, well, there's going to be stuff in there feeding on the stuff that's being deposited into the water, like the different insects and different little creatures and stuff. The bass are going to get up in there and eat them. And also, of course, bluegill get up there, and they're going to eat the insects, and bass are going to eat the bluegill, and bass are also going to eat, insects and stuff like that. So it was pretty easy for me to just kind of come to the conclusion that I wanted to go shallow. And that's really where I kind of had my focus for the main part of the day, which I think was the wrong thing to do. Now kind of like thinking about it, and I should have been fishing that drop off edge, that's where it dropped off into deeper water. So I mean, it just seemed like the bass in that area had pulled off to that point. Now, that also being said, I also moved to a different area of the lake. So I've been really fishing more the eastern side of the lake. There's a little cove there that I've been fishing. And I've been fishing it for a while, and I've gotten pretty used to like figuring out where the fish are in there, and I seem to be pretty consistent when I go back in there. So I decided just to go to a different spot of the lake. So when I went to the other spot of the lake, I fished my way down, and I wasn't really catching anything. I think probably for one thing, I was not able to cast, or not casting where I should have been casting with my flipping bait. I also probably should have went ahead and took off the chatterbait and put some sort of like toad or frog onto my other bait casting. So that way I had a Topwater on one bait caster and my little punch rig, which I ended up having a punch rig with a 3/16 ounce weight onto it. So I went very, very lightweight. I should have probably switched that up to a 1/4 ounce. I should have went just a little bit heavier because it seemed to have a little bit of trouble getting into some of the cover. And I'm pretty sure if I was able to actually get into some of that cover, I might have actually hooked up into more bass. I did catch the first flipping bass of the year this year, which is great. Yeah, that's something that's another technique that I want to like really get down solid is flipping into stuff and pitching into stuff and, catching bass, in that sort of, with that sort of technique, because, it's really quick. You can do it in a really quick succession, but it's not just chuck and wind and chuck and wind and chuck and wind, because I kind of feel like when you're sitting there just chucking your bait out and you're winding it through stuff, you are like picking your spots, like, okay, I can throw here and I can see how my bait's going to like kind of come through this stuff. So this is the reason why I'm chucking it here. But other times it's just like you're just beating the bank and that's all you're doing. All you're doing is chucking out and just winding it back, chucking it out and winding it back. Yeah, there's different cadences. There's how fast you're going. There's, if you're, you can do the whole just burn it and then pause, burn it and pause. There's all sorts of different types of retrieves that you can do. It's just, sometimes it gets a little bit boring just chucking it out, winding it back, chucking it out, winding it back, hung up and stuff, rip it out, wind it back. That sort of thing. I like to mix it up. I like to switch it up. And I also like using techniques that maybe I'm not necessarily like great at, or maybe I'm not used to doing it. Maybe I've caught a couple of fish doing it. Like a lot of the slower techniques, I tend to shy away from slower techniques just because I notice I power fish a lot. But I think a lot of that has to do with the platform that I'm fishing on. Since I'm fishing on a kayak, if you're dealing with wind, you're moving all over the place. It's so hard to slow down in a kayak if you're not anchored down. Like you have to anchor off in a spot. And I think that's maybe something that I might just try to invest in is some sort of anchor retrieve or something to that effect. A way I can just drop the anchor and then just wind it back up. Just drop it down, wind it. That's great. That's what I need, because there's a lot of the times to where I feel like I could just drop an anchor down or maybe get one of those power poles. I mean, something like that would be a game changer for real. If having a power pole would be probably the biggest improvement I could actually do on a kayak, other than putting a motor on it. Like other than having like a literal engine onto a human powered device, something like a power pole would probably be the most expensive thing I'd buy for my kayak. Definitely 100%, because I think they're like $500 or some shit. I'm pretty sure they're like $500. I know they're expensive, but I mean, and here's another thing: is when you buy that, you also have to buy the battery. You have to buy the case, and you have to buy everything that goes along with the power pole. In order to operate the power pole, you got to buy all that stuff. So it's not just the power pole itself, like just the motor. There's the pole. What size pole are you going to get? Because, if you get a huge power pole, it's just going to be sticking up in the air and you're going to be catching it into trees. But if you don't get one that's long enough, you're going to be stuck off in the shallows all the time. So you kind of have to pick your poison. What do you want? But yeah, either that or one of those staking poles. I would like one of those, because those you can actually move yourself around in shallow water with those, big poles that you use to like maneuver your, it's just essentially just pushing off the bottom and pushing yourself in different directions, whichever way you want to go, And I think that'd be cool. Something like that. Yeah. Or, yeah, I think that would be a good way to go. Is because I can still I can stake that through my Anchor Wizard and be able to move it back and forth. I mean, it's essentially a power pole, but without the power. It's just a pole. I guess. Yeah. It's been a fun day fishing, obviously, but it's been a long day fishing. But it was nice. It was cool. I actually I ended up catching 5 fish. I missed 2. And also I missed 1 off of camera. So, well, not missed 1 off of camera, but I caught. No, there was 2. No, one of them I caught after my camera battery died. So there was one that I didn't get on film, which was the biggest one of the day. Which, it was probably about 2.5, 3 pounds, something like that. It was a pretty good fish. It was a decent fish, but just camera dies and all right, no more video. But yeah, I gotta say, this is something. Those cameras that I put on my head, those ones are just so weird looking. I just feel so uncomfortable having that on my head and just like looking around because it sticks up so far off my head. And I know it looks weird because I've taken like selfies and it looks terrible. It's like a mechanical cowlick on top of my head, just right here. Just a flock of seagulls just sailing in the wind. I almost like the chesty because it looks better while I'm wearing it, but I like the head cam because I get a better angle on my fishing. It's hard for me to get a good angle while it's on my chest. If I'm standing up and fishing low, then it's actually it's pretty good for that. But the headset's the way to go as far as like camera angles for me. So far, my best camera angles have been from the one that sits on top of your head. It's hard to kind of. I've been watching the film, and man, I gotta tell you, it's a lot better than the chesty. For one thing, it follows my head, so wherever my head is pointing, that's where the camera's pointing. So if I sit there and look at something, I just need to make sure I'm turning my head in order to be able to capture it. Whereas if it's my chest, I gotta like angle my chest. I'm doing some weird stuff over here. Like, hey, here we go. Just trying to film you. Whereas my head, I can just turn it. It's a little bit more natural when it comes down to like what I'm doing. It's a little bit less of a hassle, but you still have to like make sure that it's pointed in the right direction. It's not pointed down too much, still pointed out. But, oh well, I'll look silly. That's fine. We all look silly. It's kind of like you see people doing yoga in the park, like just right there. It's silly too. It's good exercise, good stretching, not dogging on yoga, but you look a little silly while you're out there by yourself doing yoga. Do what you do. But just remember, when you think, man, that dude looks silly with the camera on top of your head, well, you're stretching in front of everybody else. So, take that. But, yeah. So, the biggest one of the day came at the end of the day. And it was still the jackhammer. The jackhammer just came through. I only caught, like I said, I caught one punch fish. And what it was, I was sitting next to there was some grass and there was some brush where the water had risen past where it normally was. Most of this stuff, like all the trees and brush and stuff, that usually, I mean, it's pretty marshy back in there, so it's all kind of like, it gets flooded a lot. So, I mean, normally I don't think it's right there where, like, normally where these like bushes are, the water level is usually kind of right there, so where they're not, they don't necessarily sit too deep into the water, but this time they actually were kind of, in the water a little bit. So I was able to flip the grass line that was right next to these, little bushes, and that's where I ended up catching one. But I just kind of hopped it out of one hole, and it fluttered back down in the other. And I just felt the little dunk, and I set the hook, and it was a little guy. Little bass. But got that first punch fish out of the way. Well, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's a punch fish. It was a punch rig. So it was a punch fish. I was kind of punching. And that's the thing. It's what it is. It's really more of a like a weedless jig, like a jig that doesn't have a weed guard and an exposed hook. It's a weedless jig, which, yeah. So that's what you want. You don't want some sort of you don't want something that has some sort of exposed hook or anything that's just gonna get caught up into any sort of brush or any sort of grass or anything like that. You want to be able just to pull that bait right back out of that hole. And I was using one of the net baits, those crawls. They got some pretty decent action, but I mean, I was using some, I was in really dirty water, and that was, I mean, I could have put one of the space monkeys on there, but I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, I'll just go ahead and throw one of these guys on there just in case, maybe save the space monkey for another day. I thought about throwing them on there, though. I would have to rip off the two bottom claws, not the main ones, but the ones that are on the side. I'd definitely have to take those ones off. Either that or take off the skirt, one of the two. But I kind of like the skirt on there, so I was like, let's leave it. I almost should have went to the other skirt. I have a more natural, it kind of looks more like a bluegill skirt. I probably should have went to that with the blue bait. So that way, because some of the spots I was finding, I was noticing that the mud was kind of settling out right before it started getting in. Like when it got into this grass, behind the grass was actually kind of clear. Like it kind of cleared up into there. And I actually found one spot that was really clear. And what it was a drain. I saw a carp in there, some little bluegill running around. It was pretty cool to see how like clear it was back in there, and it was just holding off the mud. There wasn't any flow. Like the only current was the current that was coming into it. So obviously it's pushing all the clear water into the muddy water, and that's just making it clear back into that little drainage, which at first I thought I saw a bass, but turned out, like I said, it was a carp, a little carp. I'm like, all right, little guy. If I had a bow fishing setup, I'd dome you, but I don't. And I don't know what to do with carp. But yeah, so I don't know. It was a pretty decent day of fishing, but it started out so quick and then it just shut off. I think it was because I moved out of the area. I think it was just because I went to an area and started fishing thinking that there would be fish there, and there just wasn't. And then I got to an area that did have fish there, and I was pretty cool. I think they're spawning in there. I think there's some spawning going on, because I noticed there were some bass that was doing some, like, they were all boiling the water and like causing mud just to kind of go everywhere. And at first I thought they were carp, but No, I actually kind of got a pretty decent look at it. I'm like, no, those are bass. Those are bass in there. They're making beds. So there's some bed making going on, but it's just so dirty, it's hard to really tell where the beds are. You know, I mean, you only got a couple inches of visibility. I mean, maybe here in like, you know, a day or two if it doesn't rain, but I can't see it not raining. I think it's going to rain. I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow through next week into the next year. I think it's supposed to rain for the rest of the year. I think that's what they say. And springtime is just now all the time. And it's just always going to be rainy. So that's what you should expect from now on for the weather, is to always be rainy. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So, Sunday, rain. Monday, thunderstorms. Tuesday, rain. Wednesday, thunderstorms. Thursday, thunderstorms. Friday, light rain. Saturday, rain. Just nothing but rain. Rain, 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 rain. It's going to flood. We're going to lose Clinton again. Why does it got to rain so much? I know it's spring. But don't they know that? Ooh, I think it had some nice and tasty news. Yeah. So next Saturday it gets even better. Isolated thunderstorms. Then the Sunday after that, scattered thunderstorms. So more thunderstorms, and then more scattered thunderstorms, and more scattered thunderstorms. Then AM thunderstorms. Then PM thunderstorms. Mostly sunny, scattered thunderstorms. It's just nothing but rain. Nothing but rain. I mean, it must be monsoon season, I guess. Maybe it was a good idea that I have a kayak. Might need it to get to work. Jesus. I can't believe there's that much rain that's heading our way. That's got to be some like record rainfall right there. So I guess what's going to happen is it's going to be more black and blue. It's going to be more shallow water chatterbait fishing. It's just going to be all of that. Guaranteed shallow water chatterbait fishing. Oh man, what is going on? I don't want this amount of rain. I don't think we need this amount of rain. If we could take like 3 of those days and then have like another 3 days without rain, hey, that'd be cool. But no, they're like, hey, we're just gonna rain on you. You want a parade? Not this day. I wonder how many parades are being... Oh, yeah, there's not any parades. What am I talking about? There's not going to be a parade. Yeah, let it rain. There's never going to be a parade again. I mean, who wants to go to a fucking parade? Screw that. Unless you're a kid. Get some free candy. But let's go to Onyx. I'm going to have to go to the maps. Onyx Maps. Because I have to. I have to go to the map. Because if I don't go to the map, then I don't know where I'm at. So I don't think that fishing the river is going to be very... That's not going to be what I want to do. I think I'm going to stay down towards the lake. Because I kind of feel like fishing up into the river is going to be a little bit treacherous after all this rainfall. There might be some currents and some debris floating down river. But I do like using satellite maps because one of the things is it actually shows you, especially if the lake is shallow enough, it actually shows you where the all the islands and stuff are. So, yeah. So where I first started catching them was off the point of an island. That's basically what it is off that, just kind of off the edge of this island that's right across the of the launch point. What I think I'm going to do for this next weekend, I'm actually instead of going, west like I did, because I went to the there's this. It almost the land just makes this point to where it almost makes like a right angle, like kind of comes out like almost like an arc, and then it has like a right angle point, and then it comes back, and then it makes another right angle. So that's where I was fishing. I was fishing that that edge where the reeds were, and that's where I was noticing bass. And also, I noticed it's a really hard bottom back there. I had some hard time anchoring down. I almost needed to make sure I bring my anchor if I go back over there. But I also think the south end of the lake. So towards the south end of the lake, there is almost a lot bigger island. It's generally always underwater. I think it's very, very, very rarely is it ever exposed. Like, as far as the mud on this island ever really exposed. So it's very shallow. Like, when we're talking, when I say shallow, I mean inches. If it's at a regular pool, normal pool. But it's not going to be inches. So I also think that the bass are probably going to be somewhere on this island. I think most likely, since the current is coming from north to south, I think they're probably going to be hunkered off of some any sort of cover that is more towards the northern point to that. I think the more northern point or along the edge, the western edge of that point. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, Charlie. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to fish that part. And they also might be hunkered off on the back end of it too. Just waiting for stuff to kind of float around and come to that back end to where there's probably going to be like more eddies and stuff like that. So I think maybe... So here I go. I'm going to be flip-flopping. I think maybe that back end might be better. I'm thinking the back end is going to be better. I think some of the more aggressive fish are probably going to be on that front point, but I think there's going to be less fish up there, whereas I think more bass are going to hang off on the southern side where there's not going to be as much current coming over it. So it's going to create a current break. That hump is going to create a current break, and I think that's... So there's probably going to be a lot of debris on the northern end. So there's probably going to be flipping stuff on the more northern end, whereas I'm pretty sure the southern end is going to be more pulling out. And I think I might just pull out the underspin depending on what all I'm finding. Might not be a bad idea to just go ahead and tie that dude on and throw him out there. Because I don't know. There wasn't much slow fishing going on. There was a lot of wind. So I think if there's probably going to be a lot of wind, and there's a decent chance that there is, I'm probably just going to throw the underspin on the spinning setup, which it's a little hefty for that, but it's a medium heavy fast action spinning setup, so it actually is pretty decent. So, yeah, I think the southern end is actually going to be the way to go. And, yeah. I think my brother's coming home. So if you're hearing that, but I think that's a pretty decent place to start out, is on that southern end of that island. Just the way the current flows, because it's going to break. I think it's going to break around, because it kind of just forks around it. And there's possibly could be bass sitting on the opposite side of that northern tip onto the bank, right next to that deep water. Because I bet you there's going to be a few eddies right in there. That's going to be some pretty turbulent place if it's, not like turbulent, not like, oh, you better watch out, you might not be able to handle it. It'll be fine, most likely. But, I don't know, we'll see. We're supposed to get a lot of rain. So, I don't know how this place is going to look after the rain. It's going to look pretty flooded. I mean, I would like to fish more up into the James, but I just kind of feel like if I get too... I just think it's just going to be a little bit too much to handle at that point. I think it's going to be up and running, and you're going to want some sort of motor, or you're going to want something. There's probably going to be a lot of debris flowing through there, since there's going to be that much rain. So that means there's going to be that much more stuff coming down river. So, but I think if I could, I'd like to go up the James and go into a little oxbow that I found, or back into some of these creeks. Like some of these, there's almost like these little outlets. Almost like they're pretty much like old creek beds or drainage or whatever it is. I don't know what they are. I know it's been dammed up. Like there's a small dam at the top of it that I've found. But other than that, I'm not really sure. I just know that the James kind of forks around a little bit right there. But I would like to float the James and actually go all the way down it. I'm glad my brother left the door open, so you can hear all the wonders of the outside. Come to you. Brought to you by the Topwater Podcast. Motorcycle sounds. But it looks like an interesting river to float. I wouldn't mind floating it. I bet there's some nice smallmouth fishing through there. Probably not right now. I don't know. Never fished for smallmouth in a river that's flooded. But, I mean, who knows how bad it is until we actually see it whenever Saturday rolls around. Because when Saturday rolls around, I'm going to get out there and at least take a look. If it's too bad, then I'm just going to have to pull the ripcord and just say no. But I don't think it'll ever be too bad. Like, too bad is like, walking out there and it's just, the current's so heavy inside the lake that it's just, that you can't get back to the launch point. But I don't see it getting that bad. I mean, especially being in a lake. A lake tends to dole the current out because there's just so much more space. It's not concentrated. It has somewhere to go. So the force kind of just disseminates. I think that's the right word. Let's go with that one. But, yeah. So that'll be cool. See that. Fish more of these flood conditions and fish everything else. So, but I still just think shallow. If you can find a spot to actually be able to cast to, go for it. Find those spots. Find that shoreline. Because the thing is like that spot that I was fishing today, I guarantee you from a week now, a lot of that's going to be, there's going to be a lot of water there. And those fish may push back up in there. I don't know how far they'll go, but I don't think I can get back in there. I mean, it would have to rise several feet for me to be able to get back in there. And even then, there's just so many trees and bushes and stuff. It'd be impossible. It would literally be impossible to get back in there. Because I'm looking at it from a satellite view now, and I'm seeing where I was fishing. And where I was fishing, I was pretty close up into the trees. And there's lily pads. There's a whole field of lily pads right there that normally I wouldn't have any access getting. I wouldn't be able to get into that at all. Not even a little bit. Whereas then there's some grass that comes and grows out in front of the lily pads. But it's good to know that it's nice hard bottom back into there. That means bass are going to hang out into there. Especially when it comes up into the summertime. Be able to punch into there. But, you're not going far. You're going to be out on that outside edge. Good luck getting back in there. Literally good luck. Because I've tried to push into the lily pads, and it is hard. It is hard, and it's hard to get in, and it's hard to get back out. You pretty much have to go back the way you came, because there's no turning around. You just shoot straight in, you shoot straight back out. Find somewhere to turn around. But yeah, it's no fun. It's no fun trying to push through the lily pads. Because you're constantly having to move these lily pads out of the way with your paddle just to move forward. And just the act of moving them out of the way is what's driving you forward. So, so in order to fish back into where I was fishing today, you'd probably end up just getting stuck. So, which is the nice thing about this time of year is because I can actually get back there and fish. So that's the cool thing. Right on. Well, I think that's going to be the plan. Well, the plan for next week is just to hope that it's not more flooded than what it is. It probably will be because there's going to be a lot of rain. But we're just going to have to deal with it. You just got to fish your conditions. And my conditions now are flooded conditions. So, right on. Well, this has been great. Hope you guys have a great night. And hopefully you guys are getting out there and staying dry, staying safe. Wear your PFDs. Make sure you're wearing those if you're wearing, especially if you're in a lake that you're not familiar with. And you should be wearing it all the time. I don't wear mine all the time. I should wear mine all the time, but I don't. Just because I'm comfortable fishing in the place I'm fishing. Plus, the water is 2 foot deep. Not really worried about drowning in 2 foot deep water. I can swim. It's not big. Oh well. But yeah, so just be safe, use common sense. You know, if you're fishing in rough water, if it's high winds, you know, be safe, do what you need to do. But yeah, so you guys have a great night. I'm gonna have a great night. I'm gonna get some sleep, and I'll see you guys out on the water. Peace.